In this section, we continue our discussion on the ITIL guiding principles, and the next principle that I would like to discuss is collaborate and promote visibility. One of the main issues, especially in large organizations, is the tendency for creating barriers within communication, creating silos. Basically, one team is isolated from the other teams and the information does not flow anymore. And that is very dangerous for services, because when you provide services, you really rely on interaction between all these components behind the service. Information must flow as freely as possible and as quickly as possible, because services are delivered in real time. You cannot afford any blockages, any delays in transferring information from one part of the organization to another. So we should promote an inclusion approach instead of isolation and exclusion. We should try not to compartment the information, and we should encourage good communication and collaboration between different teams. And communication, it's also important not only inside but also outside the organization. For example, interacting with your consumers, interacting with your suppliers, because everything is connected and information should flow freely. Also, a very good communication and collaboration can help you identify bottlenecks, wasteful activities, because when everybody knows what everybody else is doing, it's easier to identify duplicates and wasteful activities. So it's important to communicate. Communication, collaboration, and trust are related with each other. They depend on each other. For example, without trust, there will be no good communication, and without a good communication, it's very difficult to have good collaboration. So the more trust you can build between the teams, the better they will communicate and the more collaboration you will have. So everything is interconnected. One of the main questions that we need to ask before we start communicating is, who exactly are the stakeholders that we need to engage with? And this slide will give you some examples of stakeholders, but it's not a complete list. It's just probably a list of the most important stakeholders that we have to think about. There could be others also. The customers or the consumers, our suppliers are also important. Internal teams, especially if we have a large organization with many different departments and internal teams. Developers. And there could be other stakeholders, for example, external regulators, the public opinion, and so on. And somehow, after we have identified the stakeholders, we need to make sure that we have some kind of communication channel with each one of them. For example, we could have relationship management dealing with our consumers. We could have supplier management dealing with our suppliers. We could use business analysts to engage with the developers. Usually developers, they tend to be very technical, very specialized, and it's never a good idea to let them engage directly with the business. And this is why we need this translator, the business analyst. The role of the business analyst is to translate between a business language to a technical language and the other way around. And similarly, we need to have some kind of communication channels with everybody else, with internal teams and with the other stakeholders, right? And we should also encourage communication between our stakeholders. For example, we can encourage the creation of customer communities where customers can actually exchange information about our services, give feedback regarding the experiences with our services. That could be a very good starting point to get in touch with our customers, to better understand their problems, their needs, their frustrations sometimes, so that we can fine-tune the services to provide them with better value. Also, we should encourage communication and exchange of information between our suppliers, especially if we are a large organization working with a lot of suppliers in a very complex environment. They will need to synchronize with each other in order to make sure that they provide a good, valuable services to us. Also, communication between our internal teams, especially if we are a large organization. Usually, the more complex the organization, the more difficult it is to maintain a good communication and collaboration inside the organization. So these are some key points to remember for the exam. We need to encourage inclusion and good collaboration. And for that to work, we really need to have very clear roles and responsibilities. Otherwise, nobody will know exactly who to communicate with. So we need to know exactly who do we need to engage with. Another important idea is that the more you communicate about a subject, about a particular topic, the more important it becomes. People have the tendency to prioritize work depending on how often that kind of work is communicated to them. So if you want to raise a priority regarding a certain task or a certain type of work, you should communicate about it more often. So constant communication may help you maintain the priority of activities and may also help you gain commitment from the stakeholders. Make sure you adapt your communication style, the kind of message you're saying, the type of message, the way you package that message, the messenger, and the format that you're using, depending on your audience. Everybody will have different expectations regarding communications. For some people, an email may be sufficient, but in other cases, you will need to have a face-to-face communication. So try to adapt to the audience and make sure the communication is consistent and be directional. Also ask for feedback to make sure that people got the right message. Try to discourage any kind of silo activities because they are not productive. And try to avoid any hidden agendas because the sensation that there is something hidden between the lines may make people feel uncomfortable about communication. You may lose the trust of the stakeholders. So try to be as open and transparent as possible in order to encourage a good communication.